That's their default position. I just wouldn't blame the judge because of impression. Or it would be the white group.
Okay. Thank you, Bill.
That's out. Okay.
I think we're on the same page.
How do you do?
Remain seated, come to order.
Mr. President. Yes, bring our jury, please. And any counsel present.
Judge, can we approach?
Yes, sir. Quickly. Yes, sir.
Judge, Ms. Washburn is going to sit next time in Washburn. She's going to be helping us with the audio-visual thing because Ms. Blood is done. So I just want to let the court consider it.
Thank you.
Ready, Judge?
Yes, sir.
All rise. Jury in the room.
Okay, our jurors are back in the courtroom seated. Defendant and counsel all present, please be seated. Good morning, everyone. I want to thank you all very much for your cooperation, and I apologize for making you get up so early this morning, but I do appreciate you being here. We do appreciate the efforts that you're doing on our behalf. My first question is, since we recessed, I guess it was Friday evening, by chance, has anybody been exposed to anything at all about this case in any shape or form, either by words with anyone or anything on the television or newspaper, anyone at all, in any way, shape, or form? Nothing. You're ready to begin. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have found Dontae Mars guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder. The punishment for each crime is either death or life in prison without the possibility of parole. The final decision as to which punishment shall be imposed rests with me as the judge of this court. However, the law requires that you, the jury, render to this court, as to each count, an advisory sentence as to which punishment should be imposed upon Dontae Mars. The state and the defense may now present evidence relative to the nature of the crime and the character, background, or life of Dontae Mars. I instruct you that this evidence, when considered with the evidence you have already heard in the first phase of the trial, is presented in order that you might determine first whether sufficient aggravating circumstances exist that would justify imposition of the death penalty, and second, whether there are mitigating circumstances sufficient to outweigh the aggravating circumstances, if any. At the conclusion of the taking of the evidence, and after arguments by the lawyers, I will instruct you on the factors in aggravation and mitigation that you may consider. Mr. State wishes to make a brief opening statement.
Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court, counsel. He waited in the darkness that early morning. He waited in the darkness for his victim. And when his victim was in his most vulnerable position, trying to get into his car, he walked up behind the victim and put a gun to his head and attempted to rob the victim. And when the victim resisted, he shot him in the neck. 30 days before the murders of Officer Jeff Kokab and David Curtis, this defendant murdered another human being, a man named Rodney Jones. He murdered him during the commission of an attempted robbery outside of a nightclub here in Tampa on May 31st, 2010, 30 days before the murders of these officers. It was Memorial Day weekend. It was early Monday morning. Mr. Jones was at a local nightclub here in Tampa. He was enjoying himself, having a few drinks. He had left the club at closing time around 2:30. He was walking to his car to leave. And as he opened his door and started to get into his car, this defendant came out of the darkness and put a gun to his head and started robbing him, or attempting to rob him. And at one point in the robbery, Rodney Jones went to resist and throw an elbow. This defendant didn't hesitate. He put a bullet in his neck. Mr. Jones dropped right there by his car and bled to death. 30 days before the murders of these 2 police officers. You will hear evidence, you will see a court document that's known as a certified conviction or a certified judgment and sentence. It is a court document that recorded and reflected that this defendant was tried by a jury of his peers in March of this year and was convicted of the first-degree murder of Rodney Jones and the attempted robbery of Rodney Jones. The judge will read to you that an aggravating circumstance is if the defendant has previously been convicted of another capital felony, which clearly he has been, and we will prove that to you beyond any doubt. Or he's been convicted previously of a felony involving the use or threat of use of violence to a person. The judge will read to you an instruction that attempted robbery is one of those types of felonies. So if you find he's been convicted of that, which you will through that certified document, that also satisfies that aggravating circumstance. Also, we will prove this aggravating circumstance to you because the judge will read to you another instruction on that aggravating circumstance of a previous conviction of another capital felony, that the contemporaneous commission of the capital murder of one person is considered a previous conviction as it pertains to the capital murder of a second person. In other words, the capital murder of David Curtis is an aggravating circumstance as to the murder of Jeffrey Kokab. The murder of Jeffrey Kokab is an aggravating circumstance as it pertains to the murder of David Curtis. They aggravate each other. And we have proven this aggravating circumstance, and we will already to you beyond a reasonable doubt by your convictions and your guilty verdicts for this defendant for murdering officers Curtis and Kokab. This is an aggravating circumstance. This aggravating circumstance, it speaks for itself.
it speaks as to its aggravation. That this man is a 3-time convicted killer. It shows you, and the evidence will show you.
Objection. Argument.
Excuse me, Sustained. Read please now.
Thank you, Your Honor. The evidence will show you, through this evidence of these aggravating circumstances, the viciousness and the ruthlessness of this defendant, and that he is, the evidence will show, a cold-blooded killer. This aggravating circumstance, standing alone, you will find justifies an advisory verdict of death. The next aggravating circumstance that you will have for your consideration, the victim of the capital felony was a law enforcement officer engaged in the performance of his official duties. Clearly, there is no doubt that we have already proven this to you. We have proven it to you in the first part of this trial. The judge will tell you that you can consider all the evidence you've already heard and any additional evidence. As an example, we will put on some evidence concerning the murder of Rodney Jones about that case, and we'll show you that certified document. But all the evidence you've already heard should be considered by you in deciding whether we have proven these aggravating circumstances beyond a reasonable doubt. This is an aggravating circumstance because Ms. Meeks was right, again, in her closing statements in the first part of this trial. Law enforcement is different. It's a different occupation. It's a different type of job. And it's recognized as different under the law. Every time law enforcement officers go on shift, every time they put on their uniform, every time they wear that badge, and they go out on the streets, every time they do that, they put their lives on the line. They are the authority figures in our society.
Argument, Your Honor. Objection.
Sustained. Limit this to what the evidence is going to show.
Yes, sir. The evidence will show that they enforce the laws of our community. Without them, our societies wouldn't work. That's why this is an aggravating circumstance. They are the peacemakers. And clearly, this defendant understood their authority. The evidence has shown you already because of the way he quickly answered Officer Curtis's questions. He didn't hesitate, he answered them because Officer Curtis was in a position of authority. And it's clear from the evidence you've already seen that this defendant knew who and what these officers wore. Because these officers, they weren't just killed performing their official duties, they were killed because the evidence has shown you they were performing their official duties. That's why this is an aggravating circumstance. Look to the aggravating nature, and you will see in the evidence, as you've already seen, and how he killed these 2 policemen, both trained in defensive tactics, both trained in the use of their duty sidearms, their firearms, both armed with their firearms, 2 armed, trained men. Look at how the evidence has shown you the defendant murdered them. The way he murdered them, the techniques he used, he did that because he had to. He had to do that.
Again, Judge, argumentative.
Sustained. Counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. The evidence will show that he used, that you found, the evidence will show that he used surprise, he used speed and efficiency because he had to. Because the evidence would show, and it did show, if he had given either of these officers any opportunity, they would have put an end to this. They would have stopped it. They may be...
Your Honor.
Excuse me. One lawyer.
Sorry.
One lawyer.
Thank you. All right. Your Honor, objection.
One lawyer. All right. Sustained. This is an opening statement, not summation.
You have seen from the evidence that Officer Kokap had his hand on the defendant's arm just before the shooting. You heard from the evidence from Dr. Kostowski. David Curtis, 5'11", 230 pounds, an athletic body. The evidence has shown you this would not have occurred if they had any opportunity to defend themselves.
Judge, objection. Same objection.
Counsel, this is an opening statement.
Yes, sir.
What the evidence is going to show.
The evidence will show that this aggravating circumstance goes to the heart of these murders. This aggravating circumstance lies at the heart of this case. This aggravating circumstance alone, standing on its own, justifies an advisory sentence of death.
Judge, again, counsel's argumentative.
Overruled. Proceed.
The last aggravating circumstance that you will have for your consideration is that the capital felony was committed for the purpose of avoiding or preventing a lawful arrest or effecting an escape from custody. Committed for the purpose of avoiding or preventing a lawful arrest or escaping or effecting an escape from custody. We've already proven this to you beyond any doubt. You've convicted this defendant and found he was guilty of escape. This aggravating circumstance goes to the motive and the evidence that suggests the motive in this case. And you saw that in that video. It was painted all over that video and depicted to you in that video, his motive. His motive was clearly to escape. I've already told you before the bodies even hit the ground, he was tripping and falling over and trying to get away. That's what the evidence has shown you. It has shown this man's pure motive in these murders was to escape and avoid arrest. This aggravating circumstance has been proven to you beyond any doubt, and its aggravating nature is found in that motive, that cold-blooded, selfish motive of escape, of getting away. This circumstance alone, again, justifies a recommendation of death. Now, you will hear suggested mitigation from the defense. They will present evidence about the defendant's childhood, about his upbringing, about things that may have occurred during his childhood or during his teenage years. And we encourage you to give that mitigation careful consideration. The evidence will show you that that mitigation, if you find that you're convinced of its existence, because you have to find that, you will find from the evidence that it does not outweigh the aggravating circumstances in this case. You will find that the mitigation pales in significance and weight to the aggravating circumstances that I've already talked about. And you will find that our aggravating circumstances that we have proven to you beyond a reasonable doubt and will prove to you tower over this evidence, this mitigation. You will find at the end of this second phase, this penalty phase of this trial, that there is only one, the evidence will show, that there is only one just and appropriate sentence. And that is that this defendant, who in the course of 30 days murdered 3 people, including Tampa police officers David Curtis and Jeffrey Kokab, should be put to death.
Does the defense wish to make an opening statement?
We do, Your Honor.
The last one shown.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. All life is precious, and there's nothing that anyone can do to remedy the pain and the suffering caused by the deaths of Officers Curtis and Kokab. There are no winners here, only losers. Not the family and friends of the officers, not the family and friends of Dontae Morris. Judge Fuente will tell you what the law is and what you must consider. And I submit to you that he will explain to you that you have to first at least find one aggravating circumstance before you can consider the death penalty. And that after, if you find that aggravating circumstance, you must find that the state is required to prove the aggravating circumstances beyond and to the exclusion of a reasonable doubt. Judge Fuente will tell you that as to mitigating circumstances, the standard of proof is not the same that they are presented to you. You will also hear heart-wrenching testimony that you are not allowed to consider in rendering your advisory verdict. You will hear what's called victim impact evidence, and you will hear Judge Fuente say that victim impact evidence is not an aggravator and not a mitigator and not to be considered by you in your advisory verdict. We expect to have you hear testimony from family members of Dontae Morris, his mother, Celicia Watson, his cousins, A.J. Pons and Devon Hamilton, and his aunt, Charlotte Hamilton. What they're going to talk to you about is not excuses. What they're going to talk to you about is the life and development of the person that, in the case of Miss Watson, that she gave birth to, and in the case of Mr. Pons and the Hamiltons, that in the case of them, that they're not really related to him, but because of the closeness of the families, that he called Charlotte Hamilton aunt, and Mr. Pons and Mr. Hamilton his cousins. You'll hear from Celicia Watson that she gave birth to a premature baby when she was 16 years old. She was not wed to Dontae Morris's father. You'll also hear from her that she had postpartum depression, but we didn't, she'll tell you that we didn't know what that was back then, and that her mother noticed that her baby was in her room screaming and screaming and screaming, and that she didn't get up to quiet the baby, and that the mother came in and said, okay, well, we're taking this baby, and she said, fine. And after that, her family sought some help for her, but she was not diagnosed with postpartum, and that she had the ability to take care of this child, and she was a child herself. Her mother was in fragile health and not really able to take care of Miss Watson and the baby, but she tried. Miss Watson will talk to you and tell you that she did the best she could, but she didn't bond with this baby. That the mother, that she and her baby lived in the home with her mother and stepfather, and that her stepfather started to bond with the baby, and that the stepfather was, in the baby's early months or year or so, a father figure. But he suffered some personal tragedies and became a crack addict. He was separated from the family, and that her child had no father or other male role model. Ms. Watson will tell you that Dontae's father was murdered when the baby was 2 years old. She was 18 at the time. The father was about 19. And she'll tell you that how that affected her and how that affected how she lived and worked, and that she was overwhelmed. She'll tell you that that murder to this day remains unsolved. Ms. Watson, Dontae Morris's mother, will tell you that Dontae was a beautiful baby and an obedient child initially, and that she eventually gave birth to 2 more children and married those children's father, a person named Dwayne Calloway. Mr. Calloway wasn't very mature. Mr. Calloway did try to bond with her child, but Mr. Calloway himself, she will tell you, was not ready to be married and to take on the responsibilities of a family. And she will describe for you a long and bitter divorce process and how her then getting into early teen years son became the man of the family and of the household. And you'll hear about that through the Pons and the Hamiltons, that they considered themselves family and participated as family. And you'll hear from Charlotte Hamilton that she was a positive role model for Dontae Morris, and that she was a person he spoke to and confided in fact, and that she tried to guide him along the right path. In fact, you'll hear from Ms. Hamilton that Ms. Watson, they were friends, they were close friends from the time that their respective mothers had been friends. So they were friends before they were born, and they called themselves sisters, even though there was no blood relationship. And you'll hear that Ms. Watson didn't tell her mother she was expecting a child. That it was Ms. Hamilton who did that, out of concern and knowledge that a person needs prenatal care. But, we'll also, the evidence will show you that Ms. Watson later moved in with and married Gary Watson, her husband, and that Mr. Calloway didn't like that didn't like Mr. Watson disciplining, leading his children. And you'll hear from the evidence that Gary Watson was a good man, that he worked with troubled kids, that he coached kids, and you'll find out that Dwayne Calloway in the background was encouraging the children not to listen to anything Mr. Watson had to say, not to allow him to correct them, not to allow them to discipline him. And you will hear that he manipulated and used the children, and that finally things came to a head, and he's encouraged Dontae to cause trouble in the home, and that's just what happened. And Mr. Calloway took his children with him, and Dontae expected to go with Mr. Calloway. Mr. Calloway didn't want him. He used him, manipulated him, and abandoned him too. And that at that point, Dontae was sent to live with Ms. Watson, just her husband, over her children. She'll tell you about that. And then at that point, Dontae was sent to live with his paternal grandparents. And Ms. Watson will tell you about the paternal grandparents and how they felt about the system, and that they had some residual anger all the way back to the murder of their son, David, Dontae's father. At formative years, Dontae started to get into trouble, was involved in the juvenile justice system. Alicia Watson will tell you that she got some counseling for her son, some that she could afford, and that she went to the courts and she asked for more stringent programs and restrictions for her child, saying, what you're doing, this is not working. I'm trying, I'm getting you counseling. That didn't happen through the system. And she'll tell you that she went to the authorities and they said, you've got to talk to the judge. And then she went to the judge and they said, you've got to talk to the authorities. And that she tried. But the resulting factor was that her son got no effective counseling or discipline through the system. Now, Ms. Watson will tell you that during this period, Dontae was close to his aunt, Charlotte Hamilton, his blood aunt, as he called her, and that at the critical time when his life is falling apart, when he's going off in a different direction, Ms. Hamilton and her family moved away. So that guidance, that support, he didn't have. She'll tell you that his teen years, after he was, in the words of his cousin, put out of her house, that those teen years were unstable. But over a period of 2 years, he went to 5 different schools, and he lived in various relatives' homes, and that there was a period of turmoil for the entire family. Throughout this, though, you'll hear that Dontae Morris cared about his family, that he was concerned about his family, that he kept in touch with his family, and that he always had a supportive relationship in the sense of telling them, I want you to do the right thing. And Celicia Watson will tell you that if he was doing something wrong, they didn't hear about it. That he was always respectful. That even when he was not living in her home, she'd come to him and say, look, son, I heard you were doing this or hanging with these people. And that his responses to her would be, yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, and no, don't worry about them. That he always maintained the respect and decorum that she expected of him, even when his life was in turmoil. Dontae Morris has a son who's now 7 years old. He has remained in contact with this child, and he has maintained a supportive relationship with the child. Mrs. Watson will tell you that Dontae worked menial jobs to provide for the baby. That she would say, the baby needs this, and the baby needs that. And that he would make sure that it was gotten for his child. And that he had a supportive relationship in talking with and keeping in touch with his child. And you'll hear that even while in jail, Dontae Morris maintained a caring and supportive relationship with his family members. And we heard during the guilt phase of this trial that Dontae Morris expressed remorse for killing. You'll be asked to weigh mitigating factors. And remember, we didn't call them excuses. We called them mitigation. Because no one is saying that that you are to consider them as excuses. We are asking that you look at the evidence, that you separate out the evidence that the court tells you may not consider, and that you recognize that all life is precious, and that you return an advisory sentence that Dontae Morris was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Thank you.
Will the state please call its first witness?
State recalls Detective Charles Masucci.
I guess we should. Let's go ahead. Let's re-swear every witness.
Stand right here, please.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony given as cause to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Again, sir, please state your name. I think we already know how it's spelled.
Charles Masucci.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Sergeant.
Good morning.
Sergeant, back on May 31st of 2010, did you respond to a homicide scene in West Tampa?
Yes, sir.
What was the address of that homicide?
A 2800 block of Beach.
And was there already a crime scene established when you arrived?
Yes, sir.
Were there any other officers there when you arrived?
Yes, there were patrol officers, one detective, and one crime scene technician.
Was the victim's body still in the crime scene where it had been found?
Yes, sir.
May I approach the witness, Judge? I'm showing you what's been marked in states 1, 2, 3, and 4. Have you previously seen those photographs?
Yes, sir, I have.
Did the photographs accurately depict that crime scene and the victim's body as it appeared in the crime scene on that evening of May 31st, 2010?
Yes, they do.
Your Honor, with tender states 1 through 4.
No objection, Your Honor.
1 through 4 will be received.
Moving to publish.
Yes, sir.
States 1. Detective, was there a nightclub near where the victim's body was found?
Yes, to the rear of the car, which is directionally north, there is a club called the Cotton Club.
All right. Is that this building we see up here?
Yes, in the background, that is correct.
Okay. And I know it's kind of hard to see. Is that the front headlights of a patrol car?
Yes.
Is there an intersection there with this road intersecting another road?
Yes, the east-west street is Beach and the north-south street is Albany.
Is this the north-south street?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And May 31st, 2010, was there anything significant about that date?
It was the holiday weekend, Memorial Day, I believe.
Okay. And was this early Monday morning?
Yes, we were past midnight into Monday morning.
And you said you got out there at what time?
I arrived at about 0350 hours, 3:50 in the morning.
And when did the murder occur?
According to dispatch, it occurred at approximately 2:55.
States 2, were there some items found near the victim's body that are depicted in that photograph?
Yes, there is a plastic cup and a set of car keys.
And was there a liquid that appeared to have been splashed up on the car?
Yes, there was moisture not related to any type of inclement weather.
States 3, publishing. Was there anything significant about the condition of the victim's right pants pocket?
Yes, the victim was wearing those pants you see in the picture, and the pocket was pulled outward.
And in your experience, is that consistent with anything? Or
Yes.
conducive to anything? What's that?
It's a robbery-related homicide where the pockets are, for lack of a better term, rifled through, items are removed.
And states 4, after passing through the victim's body, did the bullet apparently pass through some other medium?
Yes, at the bottom of the side window there, you can see a perforation, which is where a bullet passed through and caused that shattering pattern around the projectile impact.
So approximately how far from this nightclub was this crime scene?
About 20 to 25 feet.
Was there a witness located at the scene who was actually an employee of the club named Gerald Coleman?
Yes.
And was he interviewed?
Yes, I interviewed him that evening following the origination of this crime scene, and then we had subsequent follow-up interviews.
May I approach the witness, Judge? Showing you what's been marked as states 5, 6, 7, and 8. Do you recognize those photographs?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. Did the photographs accurately depict the condition of Mr. Jones, Rodney Jones' body during the autopsy process?
Yes.
Okay. And was that the name of the victim, Rodney Jones?
Yes, Rodney Jones.
May I approach the witness, Judge? Yes. Showing you it's been marked as states 9. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, I do.
And who is depicted in that photograph?
The victim in this case, Rodney Jones.
Your Honor, I tender states 9.
No objection, Your Honor.
Count 9 will be received.
And move to publish. Did you attend the autopsy of Rodney Jones, Detective?
Yes, I did.
Okay. States 5. Does that photograph show a...
Counsel, is this in evidence?
I'm sorry. I would tender states 5 through 8.
May I have just a moment?
Yes, sir.
Just want to make sure I use the same ones.
Yes.
All of them, yes. Okay. No objection, Your Honor.
5, 6, 7, and 8 will be received.
States 5. Does that photograph depict injuries to Mr. Jones' body that you observed at the autopsy?
Yes, sir. That is a entrance wound from a gunshot he received to the left side of his neck, just below the earlobe.
State 6. Does that show another gunshot wound?
Yes, specifically it's an exit wound that came out through the neck.
Right here?
Right there, and then the perforation on his pectoral muscle is where the path of the bullet continued and created that abrasion or laceration.
And states 7 and states 8. Where were those wounds?
Those were both on the victim's right arm, and after the bullet had passed over the pectoral muscle, made another entry and exit through that arm.
Was the bullet eventually, going back to states 3, was that projectile eventually recovered inside the victim's car somewhere?
Yes, the projectile was intact. We found it on the front front driver's side floorboard.
Was the scene around the victim's body and the victim's car, was that his car?
Yes, that was his vehicle.
Was the scene around the victim's car and the victim's vehicle searched?
Yes.
And was the car itself, was it impounded, or, I'm sorry, was it sealed and taken somewhere?
Yes. We conducted a external examination of the vehicle, sealed it, and brought it to our impound lot, which is a more secure location, and then we conducted a search at a later date.
In searching the car, searching the scene around the car and the scene around the victim's body, did you ever locate any shell casings?
We did not.
And I believe you may have told us, but that club in that area around the victim's body was in the city of Tampa?
Yes, sir.
You have one moment, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any questions, Counsel?
No, Your Honor, no questions.
You're released. Thank you. Thank you. Please call your next witness, please.
May we approach, Your Honor?
Yes. Yes, sir.
I see the victim in that at this point now, because our other witnesses can do that.
Just need one moment, Your Honor. Your Honor, we're going to tender states 12 and self-authenticating.
Counsel, you see?
I haven't, but I'm aware of it. Mr. Pence. Oh, we did? Yes, okay. Thank you, Your Honor. We have no objection.
12 will be received.
Your Honor, I'm going to publish 12.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You now plan to proceed with what we discussed?
Yes, sir.
Members of the jury, you're next about to hear evidence about the impact of this homicide on the family, friends, and community of David Curtis and of Jeffrey Kokat. This evidence may be considered by you to determine the victims, each victim's uniqueness as an individual human being, and the resultant loss of the community members by each victim's death. However, the law does not allow you to weigh this as an aggravating circumstance. Your recommendation to the court must be based only on the aggravating and mitigating circumstances on which you will be instructed later. Counsel?
Your Honor, we call Kelly Curtis.
Your Honor, before we do that, can we briefly approach?
Yes.
right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this cause to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Right, this witness.
Slide a little closer, ma'am. Please tell us your full name, Ms. Boho, your first and last name.
Kelly Curtis, Kellylyycurtis.
Thank you. Please proceed, Counsel.
Your Honor, we've attended States 11, which counsel has seen.
No objection, Your Honor.
States 11 will be received.
And move to publish.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Curtis, have you prepared a victim impact statement?
Yes, I have.
And are you prepared to read it?
I am.
Okay, please go ahead and read it.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. It's so hard to sum up in a couple of minutes how my life has been affected by this crime. Everything about my life as I knew it, 10 years of marriage, 4 kids and a happy home, changed on the night of June 29, 2010. My life has been completely turned upside down. My day-to-day life will never be the same. Everything we do, from eating dinner to going to church, has been altered and significantly impacted since Dave's death. Dave Curtis will forever be known to this community as a hero because of the way he died. However, I like to remember him for the way he lived. He was my everything. He was my husband, soulmate, best friend, and the one person I could pour my heart out to, and he never judged me. He loved me for who I was. He was also the best father my kids could have ever asked for. At the time of his death, our boys were 9, 8, 5, and 8 months old. Today, they're 12, 11, 9, and 4. I now have the sole responsibility to raise our 4 boys into the men that Dave and I had envisioned. I have a 12-year-old son that I have now had to teach how to shave, an 11-year-old that only wishes that his dad would throw the football with him one more night, and a 9-year-old son that dreams of going fishing one more time with his dad. Our 4-year-old son asked me when he was 2, "Mom, where's my daddy?" And before I could answer his question, he responded, "My daddy's in heaven, right? The bad guy shot my daddy." No 2-year-old should ever have to ask that kind of question or have that become his reality. How in the world do you begin to explain such a devastating thing to a 2-year-old that doesn't know his dad and never will? Before Dave's death, we had a fulfilling life. I loved and cherished our little family. I loved sitting outside watching Dave wrestle and play with our boys. He was such an amazing, hands-on dad. He was an instrumental part of everything that had to do with our boys. He would take them to school, help with homework, help me with dinner, and he would give me the day off and take the boys on special outings. Now, I have to do it all by myself, without his companionship and support. I am the mom and the dad. I throw the ball with the boys, I cook, I clean, I do the homework, I run the errands, and I pay the bills 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And when I need help, my mind goes right to Dave, and I'm reminded that I am alone. It makes me miss him like crazy, but it also makes me thankful that I got to create so many wonderful memories over those 10 wonderful years with him. I am thankful that my boys had such a wonderful father, and I had an amazing husband. I now make it a priority, as it is my sole responsibility, to keep Dave alive in our house. I tell the boys stories about Dave daily to validate his love for them, and so they won't ever forget the wonderful dad, role model, and friend that he was to them. I show them pictures of their daddy often because they don't always remember him through the stories that I tell. Our youngest saw a picture just recently that he had never seen of Dave, that was taken right after our oldest son was born. In the picture, Dave was leaning over and kissing me on the cheek with his arm around me and our newly born son. He asked me, "Mom, why is that man kissing you?" It broke my heart and brought me to tears that he had no idea that that man he was talking about was his father. I felt like a failure and was devastated because he could not identify his dad from a different angle. The other boys came over and looked and told him, "That's Daddy," because I was speechless and I couldn't reply. How can I ever explain what an amazing man and father that Dave was through just pictures? Ever since that fateful night, I've been trying to pick up the pieces and put our lives back together, to cope and to deal with all the repercussions of my husband's death. My boys have had issues at school and experienced many sleepless nights. We have dealt with a loss of security and a loss of a permanent male figure in their lives. They have verbalized that they have a real fear about what would happen to them if they lose me. This is not what a child should have to worry about daily. We miss Dave terribly, as do so many people, but I know that he lives on in our children. I see him every day in the way my son walks, the comments that they make, and in their smiles. Every day I wish that I could go back and erase what happened that night so we could have our happy little family again and not just have to rely on pictures and stories to keep his memory alive.
Thank you, Ms. Curtis.
Thank you. Council, close the second, please. This was not...
Your Honor, we call Sarah Messina.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this house be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Right this way, ma'am?
Counsel, is there a written statement you can please identify?
Yes, I will in a minute.
Thank you.
Slide up a little bit closer to the microphone. Please spell us your full name.
Sarah Messina,
Spell your first name and your last name.
Saramessina.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Ms. Messina, are you employed by the State Attorney's Office here in Hillsborough County?
I am.
Have you been asked to appear here today to read the victim impact statement from Stephanie Kocat?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and are you prepared to do that?
I am.
Counsel, Stephanie Kocat statement.
These are not, the name is not on these, nor is there a number, so if you would help me, I would appreciate it.
This one's been taken out and I'm doing it right. I don't see it.
I don't see it either. What is your story?
May I have one moment, Judge?
Yes, sir.
Judge, for the record, we've not seen that statement. Apparently, in the group that was given to us.
Okay.
So if you'd give me just a moment to look at it, I would appreciate it. I apologize for the delay. Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
You say no?
I stand corrected. The names confused me, Your Honor. I apologize. Yes, I have seen you. Thank you, counsel.
Would you please go ahead and read that statement?
The death of my brother has greatly changed my life. Since that awful day of June 29th, 2010, my world has been turned upside down. There are still nights that I have nightmares of this event that changed my life. And some days I have my good days and a lot of down days that I just want to stay home and do nothing. The reason for that is Jeff, aka Jack to me, was more than just my big brother. Jeff was a friend and like a father figure in my life. I had dreams and plans that Jeff would someday walk me down the aisle of my wedding and that he would be a great uncle to my children. And again, that would never take place because of his death.
Is that the end of the statement?
It is.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Counsel, approach again, please.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony given us shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Right, please.
Please tell us your full name and spell both first and last.
Sherry Maxim, SHERIMAXIM.
Thank you. Proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Maxim, are you employed by the State Attorney's Office here in Hillsborough County?
Yes, I am.
And were you asked to review a victim impact statement from Sandy CoCab?
Yes.
And are you prepared to read that here today?
Yes.
Would you please do so?
Yes. My son, Jeffrey Allen, was an enthusiastic, energetic, fun-loving, and dedicated son, brother, husband, Christian, and friend. Whatever Jeff was involved in, he always gave 110% and nothing more. He understood his responsibilities and took them seriously. Jeff was my only son. And in 2009, we moved to Florida to be close to him and his family. However, the fateful morning of June 29th, 2010, our closeness as a family came to an end. From the moment Jeff came into this world, I just knew that he had the drive, personality that would allow him to succeed no matter what he did. At age 3, he talked about his dream to become a police officer. Considering how dangerous a law enforcement officer's job is, his dream was my worst nightmare. But as a single parent, I stood behind his endeavors. Jeff accepted at an early age his responsibility as the man of the family. Most siblings don't see eye to eye once they are teenagers. But Jeff knew how important the father-daughter dance was to his sister, so he proudly accompanied her to that dance. The three of us were very close. Jeff had the habit of calling every single night on his way to work. I looked forward to his phone calls. The last phone call I had from Jeff was on June 28, 2010, while he was driving to TPD. He invited my daughter and I over to the house for a 4th of July barbecue. I remember he said he didn't care what we brought as long as it wasn't orange. Just before we ended the call, I said my usual response. I love you, and please be careful. In his most confident voice, he informed me that he was always careful and that he loved me also. I never realized how many lives were touched by Jeff until after his death. A local Tampa church was so taken by Jeff's example of carrying a Bible in his squad car that they had plans to donate New Testament Bibles to all officers in the area. No matter where I am, whether at work or out in public, I am totally amazed as to how many people knew my son, and they mention what a great and awesome man he was. Jeff can never be replaced, and my life will never be the same after June 29, 2010.
Is that the end of the statement?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Ms. Max.
Proceed, please.
Read Defender States 10. Judge shown to counsel.
Yes. No objection, Your Honor.
10 will be received.
Move to publish.
Yes, sir.
Right there. The state will call Sarah Redmond.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you've given us cause to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Correct this witness.
Please, ma'am, tell us your full name and spell both your first name and your last name.
Sarah Kokab Redmond, SARA-KOCAB-REDMON.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Your Honor, before we proceed, may we briefly approach the...
Yes, sir. Pardon interruption, please proceed.
Ms. Redmond, have you prepared a victim impact statement in this case?
Yes, I have.
And are you prepared to read that?
Yes, I am.
Please do so.
Jeff was my best friend and my whole world. To say that my life was impacted by him being murdered would be an understatement. Best friends do almost everything together, and that is just what we did. We met when I was 17 and still in high school, working at Ponderosa Steakhouse together. Our relationship began almost instantaneously with a little coaxing on my part. We like to tell everybody that. After we started dating, we were inseparable. We got married when I was 19, he was 21, and our life blossomed from there. We exercised together, took karate classes together, played paintball together, and were active in the church together. I worked in the daycare, and Jeff worked with the youth. After I graduated from college, we moved to Florida. I started my career teaching, and Jeff followed one of his lifelong dreams to become a police officer. He went to the academy and excelled in many areas, earning multiple awards. He was hired with the Plant City Police Department, where he worked for 3 years, earning Officer of the Year during his time there. This award came after Jeff made a large drug bust while off duty in the apartment complex where we lived, which he was the courtesy officer for. Jeff always wanted to work for the Tampa Police Department. He wanted the excitement of working in a big city and working for a department with such a great reputation. After he had 3 years as a police officer, he was able to apply with Tampa and got hired right away. He loved working for the city of Tampa. He was having the best time of his life. We were both right where we wanted to be in life. We had been married 10 years. I was 29, Jeff was 31, and we decided that it was time to start a family. Shortly after he got hired with the Tampa Police Department, we found out that we were expecting a baby. We were both overjoyed. However, when I was 13 weeks pregnant, we found out that our baby had a condition called anencephaly. Her brain was not developing, and our doctor suggested we terminate the pregnancy. We both knew right away that we would not terminate the pregnancy. We put our hope and trust in God. If his plan was to take our baby home with him, then he would decide that, not us. We both held on to our faith and prayed that God's will be done. It was a mentally exhausting pregnancy, but we were getting through it together. On June 28, 2010, we were getting the house ready for my mother to come the next day. I was due to have Lily on July 7th, and my mom was coming to be here for the birth. Jeff left the house just like he did every day. I walked him to his car, gave him a kiss, and told him I loved him. The last time that I talked to him, I sent him a picture of our dog Dusty lying on our bed. He texted back that Dusty was waiting for his mommy to come to bed. That is the last that I heard from him. Early in the morning, I was ripped from my sleep with a knock on the door that would be the beginning of my life spinning rapidly out of control. I can't put into words the feelings that raced through me when I found out that Jeff was murdered. All I wanted to do was lay right next to him, and that is what I did. It is hard to remember the days that followed. Lily came later than expected. The doctors induced labor on July 21st. I had a lot of support at that time, but no support could take the place of or be sufficient enough as the support of my husband. Lily was delivered stillborn, and so almost a month after burying my husband, I buried our baby. There are numerous co-workers, friends, and family that Jeff was an inspiration to. He worked hard to live a life that was pleasing to God. He wanted people to be able to look at him and know that he was different. I have no doubt that Jeff is in heaven right now. I believe that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him. Were there many people impacted by the murder of Jeff? Yes. But Jeff's positive influence will continue, Jeff's positive influence during his life will continue in his death.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is that the total of victim impact?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me give you a moment. Members of the jury, all the evidence you just heard is what's referred to as victim impact evidence. I'll reiterate that the evidence that you heard about the impact of this homicide on the family, friends, and community of David Curtis and of Jeffrey Kokat was victim impact. And again, I reiterate, the evidence may be considered by you to determine each victim's uniqueness as an individual human being and the resultant loss of community members by each victim's death. However, I reiterate, the law does not allow you to weigh this as an aggravating circumstance. The recommendations you'll be asked to make to the court must be based only on the aggravating and mitigating circumstances on which you will be instructed later. State, please continue.
Your Honor, we have no other witnesses at this time.
All right, counsel, approach, please. There's a witness issue, coordinating witnesses. Some are not here yet. Some have some medical issues that have to be dealt with.
Judge, 1 second.
Okay, pardon that interruption. There's some witness issues that have to be dealt with. Some witnesses have medical issues that need to be dealt with. So it's a bit early. We're going to go ahead and take our morning recess. I will tell you that I think that the bailiffs have a menu. Is that for you to order some lunch from here later, rather than just standard sandwiches? But anyway, just bear with us. As soon as we get everything coordinated, we'll bring you back in and we'll resume with the evidence. Right? Please don't discuss anything with each other during the recess.
All rise.
Okay, our jurors are left. Can all be seated? We'll be in recess. I guess you're going to check on your witness status?
Yes, sir.
So let me know as soon as you can.
Okay, thank you.